Welcome. That's what we do.
Mine are big gimpy. One's gimpy anyways.
That is a pretty phenomenal little
souvenir.
Yeah, that's that. This is my friend Brad, and we're going to have a little conversation about loss. Speaking of loss, that was in Peru.
Yeah. So my latest story of loss, I was mountain biking with our friend Mike Chapman, and as one does, we got going a little fast in an area that probably wasn't meant to go that fast, and I zigged when I should have zagged over the bars, and found out rocks are harder than the bones in my fist.
Oh man, that looks awesome.
It's a great reminder of the trip. Like now, every time I look, like some people get tattoos in countries. I have a nice scar and this pretty kind of funky looking bone structure.
And you leave parts of your bone in place. This is funny because this is why, we're doing this little interview on loss, right? And I have chosen people who I like and admire and inspire me on how they've dealt with loss. And I think that's one of the, we were just talking about this week, we've been mountain biking together for 4.5 years, 5 years, something like that.
Yep.
And spent a lot of time together on some really intense trips, snowboarding also trips and just hangs and parties, and had lots of laughs and cries. And I've always really, you've got a wild story, and we'll get into that. But I love I love that you're always pushing for adventure. You're always pushing. You're a major connector in this, not only in this town, but in around the world. You're just this glue, and it's so cool to watch you over the last 4.5, 5 years of your different eclectic groups and things that you're involved in. And for me personally, you've always just like welcomed me into your sphere, your community, always being so generous. And that's why hearing your story is like even more, I love that you're so wild and adventurous, and you're always, leading the charge on these things. How do you, when you meet somebody, like, what do you say you do or are, or what, like, how do you answer that question? Like, cause you got so many hats that you have and have had, like, where do you go with that? Who are you?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, thank you. I think it's very kind. And obviously I feel very connected. You and I have had some incredible conversations, and kind of like the most random, unplanned for situations, right? In the middle of nowhere, and next thing you know, we're in tears. As we're talking. And I think that happened recently on our bike trip, right? Look, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm on this journey, but when people ask me today, I guess I kind of go through the hierarchy of what I prioritize in terms of my values. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an adventurer. I'm also a business owner, a founder. I'm an author, and I'm just on this journey called life that we all know is a terminal event, and trying to figure out what it's all about.
Okay, so like on your website, I know you have a couple of phrases that all of our friends, we all have memorized because you say them all the time. But this one I hadn't, and I love this because this was on your website. I'm a loyal husband and father. I love pursuing outdoor adventures. I build businesses as a force for good. And I haven't heard that last part before. And I was just like, well, what is a force for good? Like what would that, like if you could snap your fingers and by the end of your life you could look back and say, man, I built some stuff that was a force for good. What would that look like?
I think it all comes down to creating value, and it's value for both people and the planet. it didn't start off that way for me. I think this has, again, been a part of my journey is, my initial foray into business was really about profits and building a business that had certain revenues and certain profit targets and as the driver. And as I have, moved on and in a different season of my life, after seeing some high highs and some low lows on my business adventure, which looks a lot like an ECG when you consider the ups and downs. I've got to this place where I've come to a couple of realizations that actually business, I believe, can be one of the greatest force for goods on the planet today. But unfortunately, we historically conflate this idea of business profits with greed. And that in order for a business corporation to be successful, it needs to be greedy, it needs to be miserly, it needs to take from others. And yet, that idea of greed, which is really about scarcity, that, the pie is only so big, so I need to take as much of it as possible, is really, I think, opposite of how I've come to view the world, which is more of an abundance mindset, that actually that the pie is not a certain size, it's infinitely growing. As we continue to create more value, we increase the size of the pie for everybody, and it's just a larger pie that we all can share from. So, ultimately, what's enduring for business is if they can create value for people that, is some sort of transformation that's meaningful in their life. And I think in the current world we live in, it also has to be also beneficial for the planet. And those shouldn't be, binary ideas that they are juxtaposed to each other. How can we do things that actually benefit both? Because quite frankly, as people, we only survive by being on this planet. So I look at it from the lenses when I'm looking at business opportunities or creating business today, it's like, how can I create more value for people? And in that same way of enriching their lives, how can I also enrich the planet through the same activity? And that's certainly been foundational to the companies that I've recently been involved in.
Okay, so this is more recent. I mean, and that's I love the value, those values. I want to, for those who don't know your story, if we could sum up your story, because this is why I want to interview you. Partly is because you've experienced some serious loss, and actually we were just talking too, not only in business but with people, family, relational stuff. So, and that's recently since we've known each other, right? A lot.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk about both, but just to give the context for the business side of things.
Sure.
they give us the grand ECG graph. It's like you got into business really early with toys. I mean, you tell a little bit of that. Can you tell that quick story?
Quick story. Okay, I wasn't supposed to be an entrepreneur. I was supposed to be a chiropractor. I came from a long history of chiropractors. Right. My father's a chiropractor. His brother was a chiropractor. My grandfather and grandma were both chiropractors. My great grandfather was the first chiropractor in Denmark. So since I was raised as a young boy, this was like what Pedersens are supposed to do, is go on and be chiropractors. Yet I had all these very entrepreneurial tendencies as a kid. I was constantly trading things. I would sneak into golf courses at night and go in the pond and get golf balls and put them in egg cartons and sell them. And I'd kick money around the snow meters and find, quarters and dimes and that. And so I was always doing things that were truly kind of entrepreneurial at an early age. Yeah. And so I think I was kind of denying that part of myself. And I was in school to be a chiropractor, so I was on that path. And as I, unexpectedly, the great thing happened. I ran into my wife, who, at the time wasn't my wife, but was the girl that I was determined was going to become my wife. And through meeting her, I took a detour because I decided to take a year off school, and that year off in school opened up capacity for me to want to try things. So I ended up getting in business, and I became a toy distributor, which made no sense for where I lived, but it was just what I was curious about. I mean, I've always been playful. If you remember the Tom Hanks movie Big, I was kind of like that little kid in a man's body. Yeah. Always curious.
I don't think much has changed.
It hasn't changed much, no. In any event, that put me on a trajectory of getting the toy business. And, we started from humble beginnings. We bootstrapped a company out of the basement of our home. And after, some initial tough learnings, we figured a few things out, and that business actually grew very quickly, and we scaled that business. And that business, over a period of like 8 to 10 years, became a very successful company based upon the metrics, monetary metrics. And we were celebrated as like one of the top companies in Canada for 5 years in a row, named to the Profit 100 list. I was personally nominated.
No joke. Like, that is no joke.
It was, we were riding high. I was personally nominated to the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. There was all these accolades, and we were really the envy of our industry. And unfortunately, I found out that a little bit of ego can lead to overhead and lead to poor decision making. Yeah. And we ended up tripping some covenants with our bank. I got put into special loans, which is basically life support for business. We wrestled with that company trying to fix it. We finally found somebody who'd put money in, but only through a restructuring. And a restructuring is just a fancy word for bankruptcy. So we bankrupted the company, put new money in, but the business model was kind of broken. We didn't take the time to examine the fundamentals to see if it was still there. So that new money coming in didn't fix the fundamentals, the first principles of what was making it, driving the business. And so 2 years later, we just deferred the pain, actually. 2 years later, we actually ended up bankrupting the company for good. And I was sort of at this point where, I birthed this business into being. It was a part of my identity. It was my baby. And my wife had done it alongside me. We were co-founders of the business. And so this was a big part of our identity. And it was also like an existential crisis for me personally, because this was like, I went from like this hero to all of a sudden the zero, and what people thought of me and the way that I showed up, it changed everything. Fortunately, I've come to learn that endings are also new beginnings. As long as you take the time to reflect, unpack the wisdom from your wounds of whatever you struggled, and then use that to start a new platform to move forward again.
Oh, that's really beautiful. And I want to like zero in on just that one, like, can you think of a moment right after the bankruptcy, when coming from hero to zero? Is there a moment when you were like, this is a new beginning? Like the end, like when did it turn? When did you feel for the first time like it was?
Yeah, look, I think after the initial restructuring, which was the first bankruptcy, I'm a slow learner. It takes me a couple times to learn things. So that's how I had to go through it twice. But after the first one, I don't know that I got to that place. I was just hopeful that with more money, I could fix the problem. And unfortunately, as I said, the fundamentals weren't there. But when we finally knew that the business was on life support, it was going to die. It was the forcing function of me taking time to go away to reflect. And I still remember at that time, my son, who was playing water polo, and I was the guy driving to practices. And of course, we tried to insulate our kids from all the trauma that was happening in the background. Right. The fact that, dad had millions of dollars in debt with personal guarantees attached to it, that he was laying in bed at night a lot thinking about these things. Yeah. But as he played, I would go to a coffee shop and I would sit down and start to just unpack what happened and just start journaling and writing this out.
Wow.
And it was like a very cathartic experience where I kind of learned the value of narrative therapy. Like we don't learn from what happens. We learn from taking time to reflect and then unpacking it and stripping it out of the potential.
That's a great line right there.
Yeah. And so it was in the midst of those, I would say, dark days that I started to see the light. We can curse the darkness, or we can choose to light a candle. And it was like that candle of hope where I started to see that, okay, I'm not sure what I want anymore, but let me get clear on what I don't want. I don't want to have a company that has all my eggs in one basket with one customer. At that time it was Walmart. I don't want to have a company that has like employees scattered across offices all over the place, which was another thing I didn't want. I went on and on and on, this whole list. Yeah. And the basis of figuring out what I didn't want then allowed me to see, well, if I created a business that didn't have that looked like this, and it was really the start of a new beginning. I felt that flicker of hope, that light, right? Instead of the cursing the darkness of, woe is me, this is,
victim.
Yeah, I've had this tragedy, fall on me. It was just the beginning of lighting the new potential.
Oh, man. Because it's so beautiful to see. And then from there, you went on to build another unbelievably successful toy company, right? That's known as the largest toy company.
Well, not the largest toy company. That would be Lego. They're the largest toy company.
Whatever, same thing.
We're close. Who's measuring?
It was like a massive,
Yeah. I mean, we started a company that, it was kind of crazy because we went from, doing 8 figures in volume, a team of like 60, 70 people, I think it was, down to a company that was 8 people. And we found $1 million of fresh capital to come in with 24% interest in a 1-year term. So it was very stressful capital on top of that. So, and by the way, that all happened just before the Great Recession, 2 weeks before the Great Recession, which the entire world went off a cliff. And here we are with this loan, and we got to figure it out. So our back's against the wall, right? Basically, the Cortez burned the ships, and that's now you got advanced. There's no going back. So, but we turned that into a very profitable enterprise. And it became the basis. So that company was called Tech for Kids, and it became the foundational piece of a new company that would come out of it called Basic Fun. And Basic Fun is still in business today. And you don't know the name Basic Fun, but you know the brands like Lite-Brite and Tonka and Care Bears and Pound Puppies and K'Nex. These are all common brands that Basic Fun that I was a part of that actually manufactured, sold, and distributed around the world. And that business, went from, 8 figures to, 9 figures, and we had 150 employees, offices around the world. And everything was great until my next loss, which I don't know if you want to talk about that, but maybe we'll park there for a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So because what is so special to me about hearing your story is that I want to know about the dark times.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, cause this is, when we, our friends or randos who might see this, everyone has their own losses, and they feel big,
Sure.
they're all subjective to their own circumstances, right? But it's what I want to know is how do you turn that corner? And you gave a couple of like practical tools that worked for you, like the narrating your journal, like processing, reflecting. You said the word reflecting a few times, right? Like what would you say to someone? This is a very vague question maybe to answer, but like, what would you say to someone who just lost a business, who's kind of in what the, like I gave myself to this thing and now it's gone.
Yeah.
Like what would you say would be a tool or something to look towards that would turn you towards hope?
Yeah, I think what happens. You get to decide what it means, right? And I want to be very clear. Like, my father used to say to me, if money can solve your problems, it's not really a problem. Right?
Yeah.
So getting perspective, when I think about, a business loss, relative to what you've been through, right? In terms of like losing somebody close to you, relative to people who've lost their health, money is not really a problem. It is, something, there's always an opportunity that you can figure that out and make more money. So my problems relative to other people's problems have not been that big. That being said, we all, like the commonality of life is we are going to struggle. There's no way around it. In fact, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he says, at the baseline, you need food, shelter, water, you need companionship, you need to have meaning, but I would add to that, you need struggles. Because struggles are how we build our character and develop strength. And it's a part of our human becoming. Like we go to the gym, we push against resistance in order to actually develop our strength. And so this is part of why I believe that we are supposed to we're commissioned to rejoice in our suffering. Not that we should be masochists and go seek it,
right?
But when we experience suffering, it's about asking the question, how is this helping me become the person I need to be to take on these challenges of the future? What's the purpose?
What a question to ask yourself. I mean, too, it's like, we could talk for hours on this because I'm also very interested in, loss, of how you deal with loss and just how you've even dealt with the loss of some of your close family members, right? In the last couple of years, and your dog, and like, some of these important people in your life. Would you say it's the same? Like, is there anything else that you would add to how to deal with loss? based on what you've experienced even lately?
Yeah, I think as knowing loss is a part of life, grief is a part of the human experience. And we're not supposed to deny that. We're supposed to actually feel it, right? Your feelings are there to be felt. That was what we were designed to do. And, the great paradox of life is that for all the joy, happiness, success we hope for, we have to be willing to take the other side of the coin, which is pain, suffering, disappointment, loss. They're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can't really have loss without love, right?
Ooh, I like that, yeah.
Love precedes loss.
Right.
Otherwise, what's the meaning?
Right.
We attach to it. So as I think about, so you already teased out, in a matter of, so both my parents were infected with the COVID virus. Both my parents ended up intubated on ventilators in the hospital. My mom, who had an underlying health condition, should not have survived, right? Miraculously, she walked out of the hospital. My dad, on the other hand, who was healthy and strong and fit, and I've always looked up to him, he's been my hero, still is my hero, he succumbed to the virus and passed away. Yeah. And, that to me, losing your hero, losing somebody who's that close to you, I'm grateful as I reflect on it, because I'm grateful for the person he was, and I was raised by such an incredible man. I'm grateful that I was with him to the very end. Yeah. That I was given that gift of time, which that's a whole nother story, another loss that provided that gift. I've come to learn in my life that often the best gifts come wrapped in ugly paper. Like, it looks like a bad situation, but after you take the time and figure it out, that actually was a gift that freed you up to something that you would have missed otherwise. And being with my parents when they passed away was one of it. My dog passed away the same week. 9 months later, my mom passed away. A few months later, I had this incredible privilege of being with the other hero in my life, my uncle, on a mountain bike trip that we did together, and he passed away in my arms. So there has been a period of like
serious loss.
The men and mentors of my life who largely raised me, I lost them all together in a short period of time. And I guess as I think back, it comes down to the gratitude of, I was with them when I was either with them, or I was within, like in the case of my mom, I wasn't there when she passed away, but I had just spent this incredible precious time with her, literally weeks before she passed away, that I just feel like was such a gift. And so the number one emotion expressed, I've heard the number one emotion expressed at a funeral is regret.
Right. Yeah.
Because of the opportunity people knew they had for that one last talk, that one last phone call, that one last connection, and they didn't take it. And so they have that deep regret. I can honestly say that of all this loss of life that's happened in this period of time in my life, I have no regrets.
It's amazing.
I feel like I was given this incredible gift to be with these people for meaningful moments, magic memories.
That's it, yeah.
that were created. Yeah. And I am at peace that it hurts that I lost them, of course.
Sure, yeah.
But the only reason it hurts is because I loved them to begin with.
Love it. And you don't carry the regret.
Yeah.
So it's like, is that one of your big mottos that kind of like is a flag that's always waving in the background? Is like, I will not have any regrets.
Yeah. It's a big motivator.
A motivator, yeah.
Yeah, I would say a regret-free life is something I'm really striving for.
Yeah. Oh, you do that well, man. Like, honestly, I love you. I mean, what was your slogan? Your shtick that you say at every mountain bike community gathering is like making magic memories with more intensity and more fervency or something.
Yeah, it's so Jim Rohn was one of my mentors. I never met him in person, but he mentored me through his audio and books. And one of the things he used to say that, his commission was make more memories, make more magic memories. And a memory is not something that just happens. It's got to be curated, it's got to be crafted, it's got to be invested into. It's something that you actually produce by investing your effort. So make more magic memories, and then increase them in frequency and intensity, because at the end of our life, I truly believe what we're going to value the most when we're laying on our deathbeds to say, did I live a life of virtue? Did I live to my full potential? It's going to be the connections with the people who matter most that you're going to reflect on. Again, I haven't died yet, so I don't know that, but all the literature would suggest that that's what is really going to be important to us. It's not, did I have more days in the office? Did I have more zeros in my bank account? Do I own more assets? We're leaving that all behind.
Right.
But the people that you impacted and the people that impacted you, I think we'll measure our lives by how we loved and how we were loved.
So what will people say about you at the end of your life?
I hope they would say I loved and I was generous, and that I did the best I could with what I had in terms of being a steward of the resources that are in my life.
I love that. Yeah. That's beautiful. It's like you're someone who you're always like pushing hope, giving hope. Pushing sounds aggressive, but it's like you're always using your words and your resources that I've seen and that I know you to encourage people to live this way, right? Even the gatherings that we do, you get all these mountain bikers and snowboarders and skiers, whatever, from around the world, and you're always crafting that. I love that about you. Is there anything? It's like part of me is torn because it's like I want people to know your story, and I always gravitate back to someone who's just struggling, someone who doesn't have that oomph, someone who doesn't have that, like, I don't even have the energy to narrate my story. Nobody's going to listen to my story. Nothing's going to change. Like someone's lost, kind of in a dark place. And when you're in that dark place, it's, you can't just get out of it. Just go for a run. Just like, from the outside, it could sound simplistic, right?
Here's the thing. You can't motivate anybody, right? That's an intrinsic part of people's being, is to figure out what motivates them. What you can do is you can help inspire them. And I think, there's two forces that motivate all human behavior. One's hope, the other's fear. Fear is natural. It's the fight or flight. It's what we automatically go to. It's that scarcity thinking about the worst case scenario, catastrophizing what's gone wrong. It also leads to a place of helplessness and a bit of a victim sort of story that we tell about how we ended up there, right? However, hope is more powerful. Like it's the bigger driver. And if you ever want to see this in action, watch sports, right? So if, just using that as an example, if you think about last year, the Stanley Cup final, right, between the Oilers and the Panthers, and the Oilers are down 3-0 in the series, right? And by all accounts, it's over. It's all over. They should pack it up and go home, right? There's only been one team in all history that ever came back from a 3-0 deficit to actually win. Shockingly, they went on to a seventh game. And what changed? Well, the fundamentals is that the Panthers stopped playing to win and started playing not to lose, whereas the Oilers started playing to win. One is hope and the other is fear. And so that's kind of like an easy way to practically understand the power of hope. Napoleon said, leaders need to be dealers of hope, because he understood the inspiration. People need to have something to live for. Right. And hope is not something that can exist in the past. That's regret. It's not something that can be actual present. That's what's happening. Hope can only live in the future. It's the ability to imagine a future that's better than what you see today. So, I recently was with, I just got back from our place in Florida. I was mentoring a business leader down there, and he's going through some challenges of his marriage and alcoholism and a few things like that. And, again, I can't motivate him. But my hope is to build hope in him, to imagine a better future. Like, what does it need to look like? Can you imagine? Because the problem is that when we get into the mud, the blood, and the flood of like what's happening right in this moment, it's very discouraging. It's natural to actually feel the fear and to start to go fetal. It's just not optimal, right? The optimal piece is to actually lean into the power of hope and future. It's part of the reason why Obama got elected. You know, during what they saw as a very dark time in American politics, his platform was hope.
Right.
Reimagine our nation. Hope. Right. So I think, you know, when I would be encouraging anybody who's dealing with any difficulties and darkness and feeling overwhelmed by the circumstances, that first of all, you're not just going through this, you're growing through this. You know, this will come to pass. It's a matter of figuring out what is the purpose of this pain and how can you apply that to create hope for a better future.
I love it, because you kind of said that earlier about it's this narrating, reflecting. That, so it sounds like that's like one of your things that you've used, one of the tools that you've used for yourself, but also with friends or people that are struggling or stuck. So it's like reflect, like how is this going to make me a better, healthier, stronger person?
Yeah, I think it's just coming to grips with that struggle is a part of our human experience. This is, you know, when we sit back and consider
just accepting that, knowing that. Yeah.
And by the way, it's always great to like contextualize it, because take you and your problem, and then zoom out and look at your community, and then zoom out and look at your city, and then zoom out and look at your country, and then look at that country on the globe, and then look at the globe relative to the solar system, and look at it relative to the universe. It starts to bring perspective to what is happening in this moment. And not to trivialize it, that's not a real thing you're going through. But in the greater context of what is actually happening, and that this planet's moving around the sun at 16,000 miles an hour, and the tides come in and the tides go out, which you have no control over, how big is your problem relative to what's happening? But a part of our human experience is that we will struggle. We will suffer. We will experience things that, again, it's the two sides of the same coin. And why is this happening is not as important a question as to how can you take what's happening and apply it to you becoming better. I mean, the best example for me and inspiration has been Viktor Frankl, right? Who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. I mean, here's a guy who was put into a Nazi concentration camp, had all his liberties stripped away from him, took all his possessions. His family and friends are all dying around him. And he comes to this place where he's like, they can take it all away, which they literally did. But they cannot take away the one thing I control, which is my choice of how I choose to respond based on how I view the situation. And that piece of hope is what got him through a very difficult place.
We just got goosebumps.
That allowed him to transform not only his life, but the lives of other people like me who've read his book.
Right. So it's like this perspective thing sounds so important. And I'm probably going to botch this, but I just heard a Buddhist, I was talking to a Buddhist friend of mine recently, and they were talking about how there's a core belief in there that sounds similar-ish about, pain is inevitable in this world, but suffering is not. And it kind of just reminds me of these like two coins idea, or just like, yes, pain will be a part of, struggle is part of the earth, always will be. But to suffer in that is and which you could have chosen to do many times. Right. And maybe you have at certain times for moments, but you haven't stayed there. Right. It's not like, oh, poor me. Oh, shoot, I'm never gonna do anything again. That's one perspective. Or you can bird's eye yourself and look at and try to look at what is for me in this situation. That's really inspiring, and I can imagine someone who's struggling with whatever they're struggling with. I hope that gives some sort of hope.
Yeah, look, and I would also just add, it sounds simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. That's
there's not a prescriptive, like, this is how this can actually, there's no prescription drug for what you're going through. Emotional trauma, challenges, it's a part of, again, what happens. So the simple answers doesn't mean it's an easy answer.
Yeah. one of my favorite memories with you was we were with Chappie and Kim driving from Las Vegas. We'd flown to Las Vegas, and then
to Moab
together for a bike trip, and so it was like 7 hours and 7.5 hours, something like that.
Driving,
truck. And we both pulled out our sweet, our favorite questions.
Yeah.
And this is one that I just found recently. But if you were in a room with everyone that you have ever met, and they were all there, who would you gravitate towards, and why?
Oh, my wife.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's my. She's the greatest gift I've ever had in my life. She is definitely my person. Also, the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. I was in school to be a chiropractor. Right. Didn't become a chiropractor, but that was the impetus for me running into this young girl who would eventually become my wife. And we've journeyed through life together. We've been married just 30 years this year. And trust me when I say she should hit the eject button a few times. When I say, when you say you marry somebody for better or worse, I'm pretty sure she would have said, but not for this crap. So, having the bank come and try and collect on your house and becoming kind of a pariah in your industry based upon the challenges that we went through bankruptcies. I mean, again, that'll
put some strain on a marriage.
Some strain. I didn't go through bankruptcy once. I went through it 3 times, and I tell people I don't have an MBA in business, but I have a PhD and DUMB from the School of Hard Knocks. So I definitely have learned the hard way how not to do it in business.
That's well said. And your wife is such a beauty. That's so inspiring. That's inspiring, actually, to hear how you, after 30 years, are still, that's who you would go towards. That's who you want. That's who you want to be with. That's the first person.
I hear people talk about how they have to spend time away from their spouses, and I feel sad for them. I do. And a relationship is not something, I mean, that is real loss too. Like thinking about a relationship that comes to an end, and whether it's through someone's passing, which I know you felt, or just the relationship falls apart, which happens. That's life, right? But I've come to learn that relationships it's not like a sudden ship that creates break. It is just a slow, sort of insidious seeping in of people just not taking the time to invest into relationships. So to keep the relationship healthy, it is required an ongoing, continual investment. It's no different than going to the gym. It's not a one and done. You keep going to keep your fitness up. This
is a topic that we could spend another couple days on. Okay, this is, man, I love your honesty, and you are such a well of, like, you got all these phrases and coin. Every time we're together, you're always like, well, there's the 84 P's of leadership. And then you got that, and you just recite all this stuff that you have all in your head, all these, but they're just gold. I love that. I love that about you, because it's not just phrases or coin. It's like that you believe it, and you've lived it, right? And you're living proof that it actually works. So I love that about you. You also mentioned earlier, you wrote a book just recently, Startup Santa.
Yep.
That we can put some information in the
show notes.
Show notes, yeah. To read more, because that kind of goes into more of your story, and obviously, and is there anything else that you would love for people to know about you, or about anything, life, philosophy? What would you like to leave? Is there anything else that you'd like, especially somebody who feels stuck?
Yeah, look, my inspiration is to live your life to the full. In fact, when I do write into people's books, I say, choose to live life full out. And I think, speaking about the memories, that we take to our graves, or at least on our deathbeds, right? I do think we have an opportunity with the choices we make today. Like we can travel time. We are all headed. We are all headed to a certain fate in the future, which we know is terminal. And I also know that we can predict based upon just zooming in and zooming out of like where we are today and where we want to be, how we expect that will be our end. And so, you know, the question I'd say, will you say, I'm glad I did, or I wish I had? And that should become a decision filter for everything that you're thinking about today. So you might be going through these difficulties and troubles and feeling that you're in a hurting place, and that's okay. You should feel those things. But it's one thing to fall in the water. It's another thing to stay submerged, right? Right. Take your time to go through the grief, to go through the understanding of what happened, but choose hope, right? Don't curse the darkness. Let your light shine instead. That is the mandate. And I think at the end of our life, we want to be able to say, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I didn't stay submerged under the circumstances, and that I was willing to get up and go again, so that you can ultimately control the narrative of the future of your story.
Oh, I love that. Man, I hope everybody has and finds a Brad in their life. That would be so beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing so honestly and openly. It's beautiful doing life with you, and inspiring and hopeful. So
I so appreciate you. And as I said, we've had so many fascinating conversations in the past. Every time I get together, I feel like we just go a little deeper, in fact. Just a, you know, and some of these questions I know are going to lead to more conversations that we're going to get into.
Oh, you bet they will.
So I love your spirit. I love your openness. I love your heart of service, and that you truly, you know, we talk about getting Nico'd, which is, we say it with high reverence, that it's just somebody who can pierce the veil, the mask of what you're projecting, and see the real person behind it, and ask the questions that starts to show the vulnerability of what really actually is the real person on the side. And you have an incredible gift for that.
Thanks, man. Well, I like knowing people, and you've shown me yourself. You know, you've shown me who you are. I see you, and I just see you. That's why I want you here, because I see you as this. You're just a lighthouse of hope. You're always shining the light. It's like it's okay. It's gonna be okay. What a gift. And also I receive. Thank you for that compliment.